Maury is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. He's a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of again. Thank you, man.
While you were sleeping, massive news from the NBA. The Clippers acquiring James Harden from the Sixers. It's a blockbuster deal.
After months of waiting and speculating as to how things would play out, the James Harden drama over at Philly has finally come to its season finale. In the end, James Harden ultimately got what he wanted, which was to be traded to the Clippers, and in exchange, his former employer got a handful of solid role players like Covington, Batum, Marcus Morris, and KJ Martin. But to me, the clincher here for the 76ers was the number of picks that they've amassed in the next couple of years with this blockbuster trade. So, now that the beef between Harden and Morey has already been settled, the big question now is, what can we expect from both parties, especially with James Harden moving forward? Well, in this video, I'm going to take a deep dive into this a bit further and talk about the possible implications as well as the biggest winners and losers of this blockbuster trade. But before we get to the bottom of this, make sure you tap that subscribe button first to see more NBA content like this. And you can also tap the bell icon so you'll always be updated when the next video drops. Anyway, with that settled, let's now quickly jump right into it. So, first things first, without a shadow of a doubt, the biggest winner of this trade is obviously James Harden. After expressing his wishes to be traded to the Clippers some months back, and the fact negotiations between the two camps fell to the wayside a lot of times since then, it must have been a sign of relief for Harden as he finally got what he always wanted. With Harden going back to his roots, the race in the West is going to be tighter than ever, with a revamped Clippers squad parading a new lethal Big Three, headlined by Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and James Harden. I mean, you can actually even argue that it's going to be a Big Four if you count the resurging Russell Westbrook in. But regardless of your take on this, this just shows how stacked this new-look Clippers team is going to be this season. And if you take a closer look at the talent level of these four guys, Harden, Kawhi, PG, and Russ have a combined 32 All-Star appearances under their belts. So we can pretty much say this lineup would not be lacking any star power at all. Anyway, as impressive as that was, I know most of y'all are not buying this new Big Four in LA, because let's face it, we've seen this movie over and over again. And based on what we've seen over the last couple of years, it'll most likely turn out to be a major flop, just like the previous super teams that have gone before them, which eventually flamed out into deep shame and obscurity. And the fact that Harden has been a part of most of it makes this move more concerning than exciting for the Clippers. I mean, Harden teamed up with CP3 at some point, and when it didn't pan out, Russell Westbrook entered the picture to be his co-star. Now, when things fell off between them, Harden forced his way out of the Rockets and built a super team in Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie. And soon after that, he found his way to Philly and teamed up with Embiid, which we all know didn't pan out yet again, as we expected it to be. So the big question surrounding the beard right now is, how can he flip his bad rep around and make things fruitful for him over at LA? Well, the million-dollar answer to that boils down to one thing, and that has something to do with how well he can fit with the new faces he'll be playing with. Now, I know that most of you are already shutting down this experiment before it even takes off, because a lineup featuring Harden, Kawhi, PG, and Westbrook with only one ball to work around with doesn't look like it's going to work out for the long haul. See, while that may be true to some extent, Harden has proven time and time again that he can take a step back and be a willing passer if need be. So I think there's a chance that this fresh-look Clippers team might fly rather than fall flat on its face. Flanked with two of the league's premier wing players, Harden will definitely have his hands full in distributing the leather with PG and Kawhi running around pinned down screens. Not to mention that both of them are also capable spot-up shooters who can knock it down off kickout passes. And I think this is another area where Harden can thrive along with these two elite two-way players, especially when he's engaging in pick and roll actions. Well, speaking of that, I also think that Harden will make Zubac and Plumlee more productive and efficient every time they run pick and rolls, simply because they're accustomed to running towards the rim instead of operating at the low block. I mean, we've seen that Harden works well with rim runners like Clint Capella and Nick Claxton, as opposed to big men who love to play back to the basket, such as Joel Embiid. And I think both Zubac and Plumlee will have plenty of easy baskets around the rim with Harden as their pick and roll partner, since Harden can switch from being a lethal scorer to a facilitator on the fly. Now, if you take a look back at how the Clippers constructed their roster in the last 3 seasons, most of their point guards are known to be scorers, like John Wall, Reggie Jackson, Lou Williams, and most recently, Russell Westbrook. I mean, what I'm trying to point out here is they never really had a pass-first point guard who could set up the table and quarterback for the whole team. With Harden added into the fold, the Clippers might just solve that long-time problem. And I believe that their lack of a true point guard is the very reason why they agreed to punch in this trade, even though they have an inkling of how messy and problematic it can be if you have someone like James Harden in your locker room. This is definitely a huge gamble on the Clippers' part, but with a players coach like Ty Lue calling the shots at the helm, I think he can make Harden buy into their system, because he's one of the better coaches in the league in terms of coalescing multiple egos and making them work as a unit. We've seen how he made LeBron, Kyrie, and Kevin Love work together toward a championship back in Cleveland. And if he's able to pull that off, then it's not impossible that he could do the same thing with this current Big Four in LA. Anyway, as good as Harden is at facilitating and putting up buckets on the scoreboard, his lack of effort on the defensive end has always been the big question mark in his game. But while this sounds pretty serious, it's not going to be that big of a deal since most of his new teammates are solid defenders like Zubac, Powell, and Westbrook, on top of Kawhi and PG leading the pack defensively. Simply put, even if Harden slacks off on D, there are a lot of versatile two players who can cover for his defensive deficiencies on a nightly basis. Now, while every moving part seems to fit quite well in theory, we have to account for other external factors for this to actually work in reality, such as injuries, for instance. I mean, health concerns for both PG and Leonard will definitely linger throughout the season, and Harden is no stranger to sitting out a bunch of games due to injuries as well. To me, I think the success of this new Clippers team will depend on how healthy they are in the long run. I mean, we cannot question the ability of Kawhi, PG, and Harden in terms of what they bring to the table. However, the thing that we have to worry about is their availability throughout the season, most especially down the road come playoff time. Anyway, both Harden and the 76ers got what they wanted, and they seem to be both genuinely happy with how things ended up. As we move on from this tumultuous off-court episode, we just have to wait and see who's going to be the real winner on this. But for now, I think James Harden is smiling from ear to ear, because he was able to pull off what he said he would do in the first place. And on that note, let's just sit back and enjoy the stuff the beard will cook up with his new crew in downtown LA.